What is going on, world of YouTube? Welcome to Geeks and Goblins. How is everybody doing out there in the world? The wider world of the internet. Utopian Revolt, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, man. I'm feeling rested after this vacation. I'm excited about this episode. Brand new era for Geeks and Goblins. And the official unveiling, I guess, of Goblin Gang Entertainment, huh?
Yes, yes. We have unsheathed it.
It's been a long time coming. I'm happy we're finally here. Let's
Right?
do it.
It feels good, man. The bit rate is high. We up to 10,000 kilobits with no drops. It's beautiful. I hear you can watch us in VR if you want to, which has to be a very close experience. So, if anybody wants to whip out the old, I was about to say Oculus, the old Meta Quest, by all means, please do. Get up close and personal. Just don't kiss me, because my wife might kill you.
Oh, man.
Oh, sir, I'm super excited about this Switch, though. Welcome to YouTube. There are so many things to announce. The first official Goblin Gang entertainment stream of Geeks and Goblins. We might be seeing some refreshes here in the future, some overlay refreshes, just some color schemes to make it all special. But man, I'm happy to be here.
Same.
How was your week?
I'm excited. Man, this week's been great. I had my birthday on Tuesday.
Happy birthday, bitch! Whoa.
Thank you. I'm 24 now. It's my Kobe Bryant year, so I'm excited. I think there's going to be big things coming this year. But yeah, definitely revitalizing going on vacation for 6 days after working for like months straight, it feels like. So yeah, feeling pretty good. How about yourself, man?
Oh, man, it was a trying week, just because I feel in my old age, as you are getting there yourself, that I'm just tired all the time, bro. I'm tired, and I'm crotchety, and I hear the kids out in the street, and I just want them to shut the fuck up, but they don't, and they just keep hollering and yelling. But otherwise, I'm good, man. I'm good. Slow week for the news. Yeah, it's similar to a couple weeks ago, so we're also catching up from our Multiverse of Madness week, where we missed so much because I was out and about. So, a couple of older topics that we're turning into larger topics this week, as well as a more recent weekly roundup. Speaking of which, sir, would you like to go ahead and kick us off?
Yes, sir. The first item for this week's weekly roundup, as my buddy Chris here put so eloquently on our notes, FIFA ain't FIFA no mo.
FIFA ain't FIFA no more.
Yes, that is correct. So next year, EA's FIFA franchise will be turning into EA Sports FC, which stands for Football Club. Very funny because FIFA is trying to work with other companies for that branding, but if EA thinks you're being too scummy and asking for too much money, I don't think you're going to get much business.
If I remember correctly, maybe a few months ago, or maybe not even that long ago, we heard rumor of this happening, that, they were kind of going to take the reins. Not a big FIFA franchise player myself. I've played it a few times over the years. It's a good experience, but if I remember correctly, it is the largest selling sports franchise on the planet, so I'm interested, to see what this name and partnership change is going to do for the face of football and the video game world.
Same. I wonder if changing to EA Sports FC is going to mean that a lot of people just drop off the franchise. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll have to see until next year.
Absolutely. Speaking of next year, Starfield and Redfall, both releases by Bethesda, have been delayed till 2023, and it made me cry a little last night. Boy, Starfield is my excite game. Starfield is the game that's been making me say, like, oh my gosh, this is what I want to play. Like, I'm not worried about another Elder Scrolls. I'm not worried about another Star Wars. Like, Starfield has been the game I've been waiting on. So to hear that it's been delayed, especially after a lot of the most recent updates we've got, has definitely made me a little upset.
I feel the same exact way. Also, Redfall, like, I don't know much about that game. I really don't. All I know is that Arcane is working on it, and I love Arcane as just a studio. And apparently it's going to be their most ambitious game yet. So I'm actually very sad about this. Also, very it's curious to see how this kind of like destroys Microsoft's offerings for this year. They're going to be very sullen in terms of exclusives and all that stuff. But Starfield. It reminds the reason why I'm so excited for it. Just it reminds me of the show that has been on hiatus for a very long time. A show that's very near and dear to my heart, to your heart, Chris. The Orville. The next item on our list is The Orville New Horizons premieres June 2nd.
Oh, the true Star Trek returns. Like, we got Picard, we've got Discovery, we've got New Horizons. Not New Horizons. I always forget the new one where Pike is, Pike is the captain.
Strange New Worlds?
Yeah, Strange New Worlds. We got all that. They can keep it. Give me the fucking Orville. Give me Seth MacFarlane. It is the most Star Trek feeling show that is outside the Star Trek realm that we've gotten in years, and I've been dying for its return. So this just brings me an unbridled amount of joy.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to catch up to the last couple of seasons, or not catch up, but I'm gonna have to rewatch those last couple of seasons. It's so good, so good.
Moving on. Sorry, I was clicking. Moving on. EA has announced 4 unannounced games, including 1 major IP for early 2023. Not a single idea what any of those could be. I guess we haven't got an official Need for Speed announcement, so I mean, it could be Need for Speed. What are your short thoughts on that?
I don't know if the Dead Space remake has been announced yet or not, or whether it's just speculation. But I feel like it's going to end up being one of those 4 announced games. Whereas the one major IP, they don't say it's unannounced. So I'm assuming that the major IP that comes out early 23 is going to be Jedi Survivor, Star Wars Jedi Survivor,
that's true.
We did get the official announcement of the title a couple days ago, I think.
That's true. Well, I mean, I guess when you mention it like that, I guess it could be either that, Dead Space, or Need for Speed. Honestly, it's the other 4 unannounced ones that raise so many questions. I know before we got into this, I was thinking about it, I was like, what haven't they talked about that they could be, talking about? But I guess they would be new IPs if the verbiage is 4 unannounced games, including 1 major IP. So I guess we'll have to see. We'll have to see.
I guess so. What we won't be able to see, unfortunately, or I guess fortunately for those who have their hands on a new gen console, the last gen versions of Gotham Knights have been officially canceled.
Womp womp womp. Too bad, so sad. Shoulda called a scalper. So no PS4, no Xbox One, no Windows 7 version of Gotham Knights will exist out in the world. I've got to be honest with you. I've said it for a while now, and I will continue to say it. This game has gotten absolutely zero traction for me. Not excited in the slightest, but it does actually pique my interest. This is the first real AAA kind of we're not doing last-gen versions that we've gotten. I think since the PS5 and the Xbox Series X came out, most of the time, we get that cross-platform release, or pardon, cross-generation release, but this is the first time that they've actually just kind of cut the cord, so to speak.
I think later on this year we're going to start seeing that. I think I've been hearing some speculation that Warzone 2, whatever it ends up being called, will also be new gen exclusive as well. And I think I also heard that Need for Speed game is supposedly going to be new gen only. So I think we're finally hitting the point where new gen is not called next gen anymore. It's time. It's time to see those Unreal Engine 5 games, those beautiful graphics, the fast loading, the amazing gameplay and artificial intelligence. It's time. It's freaking time.
And you know what? I'm okay with it. It gives the developers less that they need to focus on, Because, I mean, it's porting almost. The architecture is not leaps and bounds different, but it is different. So, you have to have teams working on that kind of thing. So it's nice to see that they'll be able to finally buckle down and just work on those last-gen releases. Once again, too bad, so sad for those that didn't get a hand on the PS5, the Xbox Series, and, maybe a new-gen graphics card, I guess. But the good thing is that market is starting to open up again, and you can find those things in the wild, kind of. Not PlayStation. But if anybody is truly moved to play Gotham Knights on a new gen and have the new gen experience, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
It really isn't, and it's interesting to see how some of these companies are mitigating the shortage still. I know that Sony's expectations have fallen very short for how the PS5 has performed up until this point. I think only has like 20 million units sold, only because of how scarce it is. But yeah, that's actually very interesting.
I would say so. Let's move on to our first topic. Something that popped off last week. If you are in the know of Geeks and Goblins, we frequently sit here and we talk about acquisitions, needles moving. That is one of the big topics that we always seem to touch on from time to time, besides how terrible Morbius is. But last week, the rumor mill was spinning, and when I say spinning, it was a whirlwind, because the rumor has it, that Square Enix is going to be bought up by none other than our good friend Sony. And you know how that makes me feel, Utopian Revolt. You know that those kinds of things, when you talk to me nice, talk to me real nice, because that's what I like to hear. Those are the things that make me say, oh boy.
Yeah, man. I mean, we talked about this a little bit last week, and you're like, yeah, that definitely moves the needle. It definitely does. And if you think about it, even one thing that did happen is that they've sold a lot of their Western properties, like Tomb Raider, like Deus Ex. They sold these off to Embracer Group in terms to make in order apparently to make it more palatable for Sony to be able to buy them for a little bit cheaper price.
Yep.
So even if we take away those massive properties, which they are massive, we got to give them credit for that.
Oh, absolutely.
What's left? We have Final Fantasy. We have Dragon Quest. Feel free to chime in because my brain is short circuiting right now.
I'm gonna do that thing where I go to my good friend Wikipedia, because Wikipedia never does me wrong. So that way we can be accurate here. I'm gonna scroll through this list and I'm just gonna hit some of the ones that I'm like super familiar with. Okay, I forgot that existed. Bushido Blade. Deus Ex doesn't really necessarily fall in that field anymore, but Final Fantasy, Front Mission, if you're familiar with it, Just Cause, Kane and Lynch, Kingdom Hearts. That's probably like the Kingdom Hearts. Legacy of Kain. Actually, no, that got sold off with the Embracer Group, so not so much. Parasite Eve, the Musashi games of old, which some people may or may not be familiar with. Space Invaders, Star Ocean, Thief, Tomb Raider, not Tomb Raider or Thief, and Valkyrie Profile. That's a name that I've seen pop up before. That's huge, man. That's freaking huge.
I mean, listen. In my humble opinion, all they have to do is finish up this acquisition, tie it with a nice little bow, maybe just maybe either purchase Konami or purchase their IP from them, partner up with Kojima, have him work on Metal Gear Solid or Silent Hill, which both of them have been rumored, by the way.
They have.
But sticking to Square Enix, all those properties you just mentioned, some of them might not be for everybody. Others are definitely more widespread and massive franchises. I think I agree with your assessment of this last week. This definitely moves the needle. It really does.
I mean, it's hard not to, right? I mean, even the ones that are technically no longer with Square, the two biggest hitters here are Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts. That goes without saying. Right. The fact that those games are coming, may potentially be coming home to Sony. Their original home, the original exclusive plane for those games. That's something, man. That's really big. Just to be able to have that investment behind them that says, hey, we're gonna back this. We're gonna put this money into it, make the game that deserves to be made, and make it for PlayStation, bitch. Like that is gigantic, dude. Like I can only imagine. Like can Crash Bandicoot and Kingdom Hearts, the Wampa Keyblade. It's a fantasy world, but I think that's really big, and that's Sony continuing to capitalize on, and like buckle down on saying, hey, we focus here on fantastic first party single player experiences, and I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
But the crazy part about all this, the craziest part of all this, is they're also going to be getting one of the most massive MMOs of all freaking time. And we've heard that Sony's trying to make a more concerted effort to go into more live service games. Now they're about to get Final Fantasy XIV, Realm Reborn, or whatever the newest expansion is. They're about to get that in their belt. I think that's a direct response to Microsoft acquiring World of Warcraft, if you think about it.
Absolutely. I think right now, and of course over the last couple of months at this point, we've had a bunch of high profile MMO releases with Lost Ark. I forget the one that Square actually released that is terrible, apparently, just like utter cheeks. But besides that, we've seen like a resurgence in ESO, and we've seen a really big rise in popularity with Final Fantasy XIV online. So I think that's a great move for them, especially as a response, because right now I would argue that the perception is that Final Fantasy XIV Online is probably a better and more popular game than World of Warcraft at the moment.
Yeah, at least in the modern environment. It's crazy to talk about World of Warcraft like that, considering that I feel like it's been the number one MMO my entire life. But I think during the pandemic, it's kind of shifted to Final Fantasy Online 14. So yeah, I think this is a powerhouse move. Of course, it's all speculation still until it's official.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, we haven't even talked about Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy 16 was already going to be a PS5 exclusive, but now every Final Fantasy going forward is going to be a PS5 exclusive or a PlayStation exclusive. That's crazy to think about, man. It really is. I think at this point, Sony has successfully defended itself from Microsoft kind of like taking over. I think we're seeing a little bit more parity from both corporations at this point. But yeah, it's going to be exciting to see if Microsoft responds, if they even can, with those antitrust lawsuits coming out for the Activision Blizzard acquisition. If Nintendo does anything, I don't know. This is going to be interesting content war.
So, in response to that, as I believe we're on to personal impressions, in response to that, I got to admit, here comes the needle again. The needle is moved. The needle has definitely moved. I'm not sure it's a defense, though. I'm not sure it's a great defense. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's a strong buy, if it's a buy. Well, again, this is all non-confirmed. It's just the rumor mill spinning very, very heavy. I think that's kind of them picking up the shield. You know, if we're gonna use that verbiage of a defense, I think them purchasing Square Enix would be them, picking up the shield, preparing themselves for battle. I think they've got a long way to go in terms of defending themselves from the massive moves that Microsoft has been making, especially considering, Activision, Blizzard, those are just the companies. I could go on about the franchises. The weight behind all of those franchises when we're talking sales, because I do have to be that guy. I feel like when it comes down to it, whenever we have these conversations, I have to be that guy. But when it comes down to sales and numbers and like what's going to bring in the company more money, I think it's super, super important to discuss the fact that Microsoft picked up the bag for this. And I'm still yet to see Sony hint at also trying to secure the bag a little bit.
I mean, they can't. They just can't. If we're talking about the money, Sony cannot even touch what Microsoft is able to do. They just can't. It's impossible for them to do it. Now, I'm gonna flip the argument to the other side of the coin, where money is one side of the coin. I think quality is the other side of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
I think in terms of quality, picking up Bungie, picking up Square Enix, and maybe just maybe picking up Konami, that I think in terms of quality, you're always going to be able to get that from Sony going forward. Um, Whereas Microsoft, yes, they do have a lot of franchises that make money, but we just talked about how for this year they don't really have any major exclusives anymore.
This is true.
It's kind of crazy. I don't know. I think Sony has successfully defended themselves from getting overtaken by Microsoft. If anything, I don't think they're in the lead because I do agree with your points of Microsoft acquiring some crazy ass publishers and developers. But I think we're definitely on more equal footing than I think we've been on for a very long time.
Ooh, because we have like 9 more minutes left in this segment, we can continue to go back and forth about this, and I do enjoy having these back and forths with you. So I'm fucking gonna. Let's see here. I will agree with you. I actually will completely agree with you. I think Sony wins this year. Especially with what we know is coming for the rest of the year, and, you know, these release slates, XYZ. I think 100% Sony wins for the year. That goes without saying. Microsoft has definitely fumbled 2022 bag. Their 2022 bag. But they stand, I think, poised in a better position to have 2023 way locked down. Way locked down. I think that Sony, and I'm prepping myself for this because I'm very curious to Sony's 2023 launches and releases, but I actually really do feel like Sony is poised to take a little bit, and I say a little bit of an L for 2023.
Man, listen, God of War Ragnarok, I think, was delayed to 2023. We have Spider-Man 2 coming out in 2023. We have the Wolverine supposedly also coming out in 2023. We still have The Last of Us Remake and The Last of Us Factions Part 2 coming out next year, apparently, as well. I don't know, man. Genuinely, we're talking about quality versus money now. Maybe, just maybe, you have a point. Maybe Microsoft does outsell Sony in terms of exclusive games next year. But quality-wise, all those games that I just mentioned for Sony, they can be Game of the Year contenders. We've seen it time and time again.
I admit I'll be the first person. I'll step on my own sword, I suppose. I may have underestimated their launch window a little bit. I have forgotten some of their heavy hitters, being potential Wolverine game, Spider-Man 2, obviously Ragnarok. But admittedly, I'm finding a hard time finding anything after that. And from a sales standpoint, from a release standpoint, I have to say I don't think those games are going to fully support their year. I did miss a few. I finally found a concrete list. You'd think this list would be super easy to find, but it wasn't. As far as what we know for 2023, God of War Ragnarok, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, the Horizon VR experience, I forget what it's called, it's like Call of the Mountain, I think. Let's see, Final Fantasy 16, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which you already know how I feel about that, Marvel's Wolverine, and Forspoken, which might end up being a 2022 launch. So I will admit, I fumbled a little bit. I fumbled just a little bit, and I will give you that much. But when I look at the grand scheme of what Xbox could have in their back pocket, that's what gets me excited. Not sure what's coming, but what they could potentially have. We are talking about, technically Call of Duty being an exclusive. We are talking about Elder Scrolls, Starfield, Redfall. I don't think we'll get a Fallout anytime soon, but we could also potentially be looking at a Fallout announcement, which would more than likely be 2024. But whatever Activision is working on, whatever Blizzard is working on, I can't even remember at this point all of the acquisitions that Microsoft made. But I'm gonna keep digging and find another list because we still got 5 minutes left for this conversation.
So I think I think that Elder Scrolls we won't see until I think Elder Scrolls will get announced 2024. We have to also consider that Starfield and Redfall were just delayed to 2023, so we have to presume that also impacts their future projects. So Elder Scrolls, I don't think we see until 2025. Fallout, I don't think we see until 2027, 2028. Maybe in time for Star Wars Eclipse. God. Another thing we haven't even talked about, you alluded it a little bit when you mentioned the Horizon VR experience. PSVR 2. PSVR 2 has the potential to maybe even surpass the Meta Quest in terms of popularity, in terms of being the definitive casual VR experience.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, dude, like, Sony is not a slouch. Sony's not a slouch, and we know that at least until 2024, COD is going to be multi-platform. I don't know, man. I think for the next couple of years, maybe even for the rest of this generation, no, maybe not, we'll see Sony on top. But after that, once we start getting into the whole cloud gaming side of things, once we start talking about the future potential, I do agree with you. Microsoft is very, very strong. But I don't think they're ahead of Sony, at least not in terms of quality. And maybe, just maybe not even in terms of money. We'll have to wait and see.
I'll say this. I think there will come a point, or at least could come a point, where we start looking at Microsoft in a whole different light, man. And by the way, I forgot to mention Fable as well, that we might be seeing a Fable release as well. It's so important to remember that Microsoft plays ball, okay? We can go all the way back to the original Xbox console. Nobody thought that thing was going to be the it console. And by the way, could you lean left a little bit? You've been running out of frame a little bit. But yeah, nobody thought the Xbox was going to be, oh my god, what it became. And look what happened. And I think they've continuously surprised every generation, whether it's been, what they've brought from a technology standpoint or what they brought from an exclusive standpoint. And I think it's also important to remember that Microsoft is not unfamiliar with launching AAA quality IPs. When Microsoft really wants to, they know how to pull the trigger. We've gotten Halo. We've gotten Gears of War. Like, we've gotten some very... what's the name? I always forget it. Dead Rising was gigantic for a long time. Microsoft, when they... Say what?
That was Capcom, though. We have to be mindful.
It was Capcom, but it was exclusive. So,
true.
Saying from a standpoint of, like, when they pull the trigger, they can. So I don't ever want to count Microsoft out. I'm a PlayStation fanboy through and through. I know this conversation may not have sounded like it, but if I sound passionate about this damn needle, it's because I know that Sony is capable of making the right decisions and saying, hey, Ubisoft is ready to be bought up. Let me buy that Ubisoft really quick. Hey, EA, let's fix that reputation. I know that they can do it, and I just want them to, because honestly, I fear Microsoft swooping in and spending that all the money they're making off those damn Surface Books and buying up, some other really big developers.
We have to be mindful, though. Every single IP that you mentioned that was a massive launch of Microsoft is from a whole nother era. We're talking about 15, 20 years ago, decades.
That's true. That's fair.
Decades. We have not seen. I might be wrong. I know there are a couple outliers, like Sea of Thieves, for example, like Forza. There has not been that level of enthusiasm for a big AAA Microsoft new IP since before the Xbox One, since the 360.
That's fair.
So we have to be mindful of that. But I hear everything that you're saying. I think both companies have some really strong offerings. Truthfully, if Sony purchases an EA or a Ubisoft, I think it's over in terms of just competing with Microsoft. I think it's over. I think Sony just runs ahead. That moves the needle so far past to the Sony side of things. I don't think Microsoft would be able to compete even, I don't know. I don't know what the hell they would do.
Agreed. There are definitely some moves Sony could make that would be like, all right, all those segments that I've been talking about Microsoft, you can cut them out. I didn't mean any of it. But I do agree with you. It has been some time, and I think I've made this joke on stream before. If you did a Microsoft Smash Bros, it would be literally all 7 different colored variants of Master Chief plus Marcus Phoenix, and probably a Porsche from Forza. Like that would pretty much be it. So I don't. I agree with you in the sense that it has been a while since they've brought us something really innovative that has really kind of changed the sphere of gaming, but I don't want to count them out. I don't want to count them out. They've had surprise hits over the years. Titanfall, that was originally their baby. Crackdown, man. Forza, I completely forgot to mention Forza. Pardon, when I said that before. Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Quantum Break. And I always forget that the game that came out recently that was kind of like Quantum Break, but it wasn't Quantum Break. Alan Wake. I mean, I think Sony is poised to win this if they spend their money right, but do not underestimate the folks over there at Microsoft. And that's all I have to say about that. Utopian Revolt, would you like to lead us into the next topic, the one I've personally actually been waiting for?
Yes, sir. Talking about Microsoft, we can talk about them for a whole another 20 minutes, and you can just talk to me about how you're right, how Microsoft demolish the world, conquer the world, the gaming industry. So yeah, our next topic, the date has been set for the Microsoft Bethesda Summer Conference. It was going to be an E3 conference, but E3 doesn't exist anymore, at least not this year. So yeah, they have set June 12th as their date for this conference.
I am taking off of work. We will be right here on Geeks and Goblins. If it's not on us, it'll be a one of us, okay? Because I cannot fucking wait for this. We've talked about E3 level conferences before, how they're gaming Super Bowl. And boy, Hardy, I cannot effing wait for this, man. I'm going to have a Microsoft shirt on, and I'm going to have a Dovahkiin hat on, and I'm going to have some cute shades or something. I'm going to be looking cute, and it's going to be a good time.
Nice. Nice. Oh, man. You know what I can't wait for, man? I can't wait for I might just blow up the audio, but world exclusive. You know what I'm saying? I cannot wait for that.
It's bound to happen.
It's funny that you mentioned that you're going to take off, because prior to even us streaming tonight, I was already looking at my time off calendar. I'm like, how can I rearrange my days off?
That PTO running out, huh, boy?
Oh shit. And, it's going to be interesting to see what they do, especially now that we know that Starfield and Redfall are going to be delayed. I assume that we see some sort of gameplay or showing from both franchises, considering that they were delayed, but only to early 2023,
yep.
Which is still very soon.
Absolutely. With that said, I'd love to get into a little bit of the speculation of what else we could even see here. We know Starfield is coming. We know Redfall is coming. And of course, I think with that we're going to get gameplay, especially that early of release will be well past the middle of the year mark, come June 12th, or right at it. I've never been good with numbers, but what else could we potentially see here? I'll let you I'll let you take the floor on your opening guesses.
Forza Motorsport 8, I think, is what we're at now.
Yes.
They're probably just going to call it Forza Motorsport, try to maybe reboot that franchise. I definitely think we see more of that, because I think when they first showed off the Series X and all the games coming out, they did show off Forza with full ray tracing. It looked gorgeous. It looked beautiful. And we've heard nothing since then, as far as I'm aware of. So I think if they were going to show off that game, this conference would be the time to do it. What makes the guessing and the speculation a little bit difficult is this is going to be the first time, I think, that it's both Microsoft and Bethesda, right? So what's that split going to look like? What part of this presentation is going to be Microsoft? What part is going to be Bethesda? I find it very interesting that they are kind of separating both of them instead of just calling it the Xbox conference. conference, the Xbox Studios conference. I don't know. That makes it difficult to speculate on. I don't think we see Elder Scrolls. I don't think we see Fallout. Maybe we see some spin-off games in both franchises. Maybe we see the 35th remaster of Skyrim. I don't know. After Forza, it's hard to guess. Maybe another Ori game because those games are fantastic. I don't know. I really don't know. I'll let you take it. I'll let you take it from here.
I kind of like to think of it like maybe it's a power move, right? To be able to sit here and say like Xbox presenting a Bethesda conference. Who knows? Maybe it's something like that. Right. You know, maybe just put some name there to add some clout. Although I really don't think Bethesda needs the clout. I don't think. I think people would be drawn enough to a Bethesda conference. But I think it's also a reminder. You know, it's got to be like. By the way, this is Xbox Bethesda. Like, all right, this isn't Bethesda. And hey, we've got some games for Sony. No, this is their first time that they actually get to step out to the world and say, this is what this joint project kind of looks like. Now, whether or not that means we will see both Xbox and Bethesda stuff, I'm really not too sure. But I think in a perfect world, we'll see a good blend of both. You know, we know we're not getting an E3 this year, so I personally think what I would like to see, obviously an Elder Scrolls. I don't think we will. I think if we do, it'll be a tiny tease of some sort, probably a little bit bigger than the last one we got, but I don't think it'll be anything major. I think if it is a joint conference, hopefully, we finally get something on the new Fable game. Past that, I mean, from like big moves for me, I don't know. I think after that we kind of get into what is the astronomically impossible thing that's going to get announced that you would like to see.
I assume we see a little bit more on Halo Infinite, maybe a new expansion or new season, whatever. I think we maybe get the announcement of like the full-blown gameplay of that Battle Royale mode that they have. Maybe some gameplay of the co-op campaign. So I'm definitely expecting more Halo stuff. As for Fable, man, I would love that. I would absolutely love that. I don't think we're getting that before Star Wars Eternal or Star Wars Eclipse. I really don't.
Really?
I think we're gonna. Like apparently they're not even starting on the actual development of the game yet. And Playground Games, they're also tied to Forza, not just Horizons, but also Motorsport. I don't know, man. I think Fable's going to be a very long time, and that makes me sad. But that's the impression that I've gotten from Fable so far.
Let me do a little digging because I know we got the announcement of the reboot. Last year? I find it hard to believe that. So 2 years ago, July of 2022 was the Xbox Game Show. Showcase, and that's when we got an announcement of being in development. I would like to think that after 2 years, we see a little something, right? We got to. We've got to. And I have to think that it's been in development. And so I feel like we're getting close to that point, but I think Fable is such an important franchise for Microsoft that if it's been in development for as long as it has been, we don't know how long it has been, but we can at least assume 2 years. If it's been in development for that long, I can only imagine somebody up top being like, hey, like, we need you guys to, like, give us something to show. Because this is what the public wants it, man. The public wants it.
Right, and I agree with that. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Now, the issue is, like, do they really need it that desperately? I don't think so. I mean, we have to also consider, we haven't even talked about Obsidian being part of Xbox now. We haven't talked about how they're making their own version of Skyrim with the Pillars of Eternity franchise. Avowed. That's a game I'm fully expecting to see this conference. I'm actually really looking forward to that game. I love Pillars of Eternity. I don't know if you've played it. Great top-down RPG, very similar to Baldur's Gate. But yeah, they did show off Avowed. I think it was last E3 or last summer conference, whatever you want to call it. It looked really cool.
Yep, I remember it.
Man, I don't know. I remember when they put out the Fable announcement, they had come out and said that they were still in pre-production. I would assume that by now it is in development, but I still think it'd be very early on. I think Fable is one of those games that they're trying to remake from the ground up, just change the foundations of it entirely. They have Playground Games, who we haven't really seen make an action game before. We haven't even seen them make a game outside of racing before,
This is true.
as far as I'm aware.
No,
But
this is very true.
yeah, I mean, we've seen it, right? We've seen it with Sony, for example, Guerrilla Games going from Killzone to Horizon. It's successful, but that game also took very long development, as far as I understand as well. I don't know. I think it's gonna be a while until we see Fable. I think the people want it. I freaking want it. I know that for a fact. It's gonna be a while though. But that being said, they have so many other franchises that can definitely keep us satisfied until then.
Absolutely. I think it is important to talk about, since we are talking about Fable. I think the importance of bringing back some older franchises for Microsoft, because that's their bread and butter, right? Like, as we've talked about now for the last few minutes, they kind of live and breathe off of their old IPs. They could definitely, I think they're more than capable of putting money towards a brand new IP, but they kind of live and breathe there. So absolutely some Halo information is going to be I think it's going to be an obvious thing that we're going to hear something about Halo Infinite, potentially also some DLC, maybe some story-based DLC, maybe. I'm not really sure how Halo Infinite set up for that. But besides that, Halo Wars is a franchise that we could definitely probably hear from again. A sequel to Rise, Son of Rome. I actually heard somebody talk about that. I 100% doubt that, but I've heard somebody mention it. Oh, I can't believe you look excited for that. And maybe Sunset Overdrive 2, a sleeper game that came out for them that a lot of people loved.
So that'd be very difficult. They might be able to make it. I think they have the rights for it, but that game was made by Insomniac, which is now owned by Sony.
Yeah.
So if they do make a sequel, I'm just not confident that they'll be able to make it play as nicely as the first one did. Also, first of all, or second of all, I guess, Rise, Son of Rome may it not have been the best game of the Xbox One launch lineup, but it stole my heart, man. Graphically, it was amazing. The voice acting was incredible. The story, while it was very, very, very rushed and felt like the pacing was completely off, it was so freaking cool. Having a full-blown sequel, hell yeah. We haven't even talked about Hellblade 2, also as another franchise. We haven't talked about a potential sequel to Gears of War, which I think it might be time to start drumming up those beats.
I think so.
There's so much that they can do, man. There's so much that they can do. That's what makes it so hard to speculate on this. I think a new Gears game, though, that would get me so excited.
I think it's about time. Obviously, I remember. Oh God, I worked at Best Buy when the last Gears game came out, and it seemed like every time I turned left, there was just promo. So it is a franchise that they live and breathe for, And I see why. It had a really, really big impact from an esports standpoint as well. People love the story. People love the characters, and of course, it was Unreal's game. It was their baby for a super, 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 super long time. And just to backtrack on something that I said before, so I can have some clarity, so so the script police don't come and hunt me down. On May 4th of 2021, Sony registered the trademark for Sunset Overdrive. So we will not be seeing a Sunset Overdrive announcement there at all. Just to be clear, just so nobody hunts me down. When Sony announces Sunset Overdrive 2 on the PlayStation 5. I don't need that energy. I don't need that energy in my life.
It's this entire conversation that we've had up until this point of this episode has made it very clear that the video game industry has become so freaking complicated. It's hard to keep track who owns who. Earlier, you were talking about the idea of Sony having a Kingdom Hearts Crash Bandicoot tie-in, but Crash Bandicoot is actually owned by
Oh
Microsoft
my
now because
god.
it was owned by Activision.
Oh,
Spyro, which used to be what I used to think was synonymous with PlayStation, is also owned by Activision and now Microsoft.
Jesus. I'm
It's
gonna get canceled.
it's it's not your fault, man. It's just it's the state of the industry, and I think with this Bethesda Microsoft conference, it's gonna show itself to be even more complicated than we imagined. We also know that probably every single game that they announce during this conference is going to be probably day one Xbox Game Pass.
Oh, 100%. We couldn't live in a world where that wasn't a fact. Like, okay,
Right.
I'm gonna pose some questions to you. Because I found another list. I like my lists. So let's see if these move the needle. And chat, please, by all means, we're acknowledging you with our eyes only. But I want to see how if this tingles anybody's spidey senses. Alpha Protocol 2.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Alpha Protocol is one of the most underrated games of all freaking time. Oh my god, I remember that game. I think it may have been the biggest high-profile game that Obsidian had made after Knights of the Old Republic 2. I might be wrong. It was essentially like their version of Mass Effect. I remember playing through that first game. I never beat it, but I've always been in love with that. If we get Alpha Protocol 2 with Microsoft money, hell yeah, that moves the fucking needle. I might even sell my PlayStation 5. I'm joking.
Ooh, shit.
But
I'll take
Alpha Protocol 2,
it.
that definitely moves the needle for me.
Okay, next one. We're gonna see what needles keep moving. A new South Park RPG.
Wouldn't that be Ubisoft?
I think currently yes, but the first one, not the first one, but I think we could get it from there. If I remember correctly, all the South Park games were always announced on Xbox like conferences.
Right. And it's a little tricky because Ubisoft published it, but I'm pretty.
You will not sell a PS5.
I'm not going to sell the PS5. Don't worry about it. Jesus Christ. Going back to South Park, what makes it a little tricky is I think Ubisoft published that game, but I believe it was developed by Obsidian.
Yes, it was.
So
Yes, it was.
I think Ubisoft still owns the rights for that. So while I don't think it would be part of this conference, or it wouldn't be an Xbox exclusive at the very least, that would get me excited. Both South Park RPGs have been a lot of fun to play through: Stick of Truth and The Fractured Butthole.
Yes, the fractured butthole. Last one. And it's already announced, but just from a gameplay standpoint. Oh, actually, no, I've got two more. I'm sorry. So the first one, Outer Worlds 2.
I feel like it's too early. I feel like it's too early for Outer Worlds 2. I don't think it's going to be too that deep into development. I hope I'm wrong. Outer Worlds 1 was one of those games that I wanted to enjoy so much. It harkened back to the old school Fallout, like Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, prior to Fallout 4. Truth be told, man, I couldn't get into it. It felt like it was lacking so much depth. It felt very like shallow.
Okay.
What was there, I thought had the potential to be fantastic in a sequel. So I think Outer Worlds 2, I would definitely be excited about. And if we get to see gameplay, that moves the needle. That definitely moves the needle for me.
Okay, and last piece. Let me check something really quick here before I say this, because I might trigger somebody. All right, last piece that may. It's been a rumor that's been floating around now for a couple of months, so it may happen. Last couple of Game Awards and game shows as well. But if it's gonna happen anywhere, I think it could happen here. A Fallout New Vegas 2.
Yo, dude, if it is a New Vegas 2, I'm all for it. Even if it's like a new Fallout, I'm all for it. How would that look though? I don't know. There's so many questions when it comes to that. Now that Microsoft owns Obsidian, they can technically have Obsidian work on the sequel of their own freaking game. That'd be really cool to. Oh man, that's tough. Would that move the needle for me? Absolutely. Do I think it's likely that we see it? Probably not. I don't think so.
And as always, I will hedge all of these bets. I will gladly carry all of these on my back, as definitely going to happen, because it doesn't hurt me to be wrong. It doesn't hurt me to be wrong. I laugh in the face of danger. I laugh in the face of failure. And I laugh at Morbius because it was a gigantic failure. A huge, huge favor. I'm hoping that we get, personally, for me, I'm hoping we get a Morbius spin-off announcement game here, starring Jared Leto as Morbius, and developed and produced by Tyrese Gibson. Hopefully, that's what I'm on board for. I think that would be a fantastic success. I think it's what gaming needs, personally.
It would be like the Game Awards when the big surprise that they had was that Fast and Furious game, and then they had Vin Diesel come onto the stage. It'd be exactly like that, except with no applause.
Exactly. I imagine kind of a reverse Cyberpunk stage announcement where they announce the game and Jared Leto comes out on stage for his "No, You're Amazing" moment, and instead it's crickets and rotten tomatoes being tossed onto the stage. That's what I imagine. It'll be the complete inverse of what we received from Keanu Reeves.
Probably.
Yes.
Jared Leto, you were good in Blade Runner. Retire after that.
Moving on to our final topic of the evening, sir. I believe that I led us into the Microsoft conference. Did you lead us into the Microsoft conference? You led us into the Microsoft conference. So yeah. I will do the cold open for Nintendo. And by cold open, I mean their future is looking rather cold and rather open, because we really do not know, and neither do they, what they're really going to do for their next-gen console, but they are fully focused on it. And that kind of opens up a conversation for me about, like, where do we go from here with consoles anyway? But specifically with Nintendo, they've been historically known to be kind of behind when it comes to their console givings, you know? The Switch was honestly probably the closest that they've been to releasing a new console that's been close to on par with what we received in a generation. But going forward, next gen, I don't really know what that looks like for Nintendo, and frankly, they don't know either.
So, they did express that they want to alleviate the risk of essentially resetting its user base. That makes me think that they're going in one direction, a direct sequel to the Switch. I don't think it's going to be like another drastic overhaul of what they currently have. I think, honestly, if they want ideas on what to do with their next-gen consoles, they shouldn't look too far past the Steam Deck. I feel like having a very high-quality screen, make it an OLED screen, make it a bigger screen with smaller bezels, make it maybe even bigger into like a tablet format with an external controller with the Joy-Cons that you can use that are like actual full-size controllers or something like that. I think that's all they really need to do. Keep doing what you're doing, Nintendo. Make it Switch 2. Make it bigger. Make it better. Make it play 4K games. If you're even able to make it powerful enough where you're able to have a lot of third-party games, like, let's say a Call of Duty, let's say Elden Ring, just as an example, Control. If you're able to have games like that, holy crap, you've already kind of like not necessarily won that generation in terms of competing with Microsoft and Sony, but you're already set for the next 8-9 years.
I worry, you know, I worry for Nintendo because I've said it before, and it's a conversation that I keep returning to whenever I really have any conversation about Nintendo. I feel like they have they have a fundamental like lack of understanding and appreciation for their own fan base. So it's interesting to see them say that they want to alleviate the risk of resetting its user base. Because for me, that's actually rather telling too. They want to kind of fix that problem. But Nintendo has always scared me from a technology standpoint and a support standpoint because they've always been so unwilling to compromise and work with their fan base and what they want. They're kind of like the exact opposite of what we got with the Sonic movie overhaul, where they decided to the fans weren't happy, so they decided to completely rework the way he looked. Nintendo's the absolute opposite of that. They know that their fans want, them to support their esportsy titles as esports, but they're just like, abso-fucking-lutely not. We will not do it. You should be ashamed of yourselves for even asking us to do something that ridiculous. What the fuck is wrong with you? I never look forward to their console releases, if I'm being completely honest. Even when the Switch was announced, I never said to myself, all right, yeah, this is lit. Like, I was just kind of like, all right, where are they going to drop the dime? And they have in a couple of ways. But as always, it's kind of like being behind in technology for me. We are in a 4K generation. Take that as you want to its level of importance to, gaming itself. But we are in a 4K high-res generation where the focus is on high-resolution gameplay, ray tracing, all those other things, high refresh rate, all those other things that come with today's generation in gaming when it comes to the technology. And like it or not, I think Nintendo needs to understand that they are going to have to play ball with that.
So back when the Nintendo Switch Pro rumors were coming out, Jason Schreier of Bloomberg was reporting that it was supposedly going to have a next generation Tegra chip, which is an NVIDIA-made chip. It was essentially going to have DLSS, meaning that it'd be capable of running higher quality games on a dynamically smaller resolution. It's magic. It's magic. I find it funny that you mentioned that you weren't excited about the Switch when it was first announced. I remember having this conversation. Matthew, if you're still in the chat, you were part of it. You were on the other side of it. You were the Chris of the situation in that conversation. I was the only one in my household who believed that the Switch was going to be a massive success. Everyone was like, but no, the Wii U, it was garbage. Nintendo doesn't know what to do. That is true to a certain point, but we also have to remember, at this point, I think it was a day ago, the April NPDs came out, and the Nintendo Switch has officially surpassed the PlayStation 4 as the 4th highest selling console in US history. I mean, I'm not worried about them. And them coming out saying that they don't want to reset their user base, I think we're going to be seeing some really cool stuff. I'm saying it right now. I'm anticipating a Nintendo Switch 2, or I really hope they call it the Super Nintendo Switch, and then come out with Breath of the Wild 2. Boom. There you go. You started off with a bang. You don't really need much more than that.
Well, so let me be clear on something. I never thought the Switch was going to flop. Let me say that. But to its credit, with this announcement of it being the 4th highest selling console in US history, I think Nintendo consoles inevitably sell well. I think that's kind of their point, regardless of what they are, whether it's I was going to say whether it's the Wii U, but that did not. That sold as well as Morbius did in the box office. They're bound to do well. That's just a reality of being Nintendo. They are the forever loved developer out of the big three. They can, for all the harm that they do, they can really do no wrong. But I don't think that's okay anymore. I think we live in a world where there are standards. And again, riffing off of the comments, because it did spark something that I read. So I'm just going to read this whole thread right here. That's why no matter what, their sales are always good. People debate buying either Xbox or PlayStation, but they always buy Nintendo. Like getting a PS5 and a Switch, or Xbox and a Switch, but always a Switch. I think the Switch got lucky that it didn't come out in the last 2 years, because people really would have been drawing lines in the sand there. And we have as well. We have a PS5. We don't have a Series X. Whether it's access or want, it's a reality. And I think we are coming down to a point where, access is going to be a really big thing. So I just don't think going forward, the way the generations work, the way gaming has evolved to what it is now, I don't think Nintendo is going to survive unless they adapt, approaching another comment here in the chat, 1440p, 120 hertz, minimum. Yeah. And they need to stop playing with their fan base. They have to stop playing with their fan base's emotions. I'm sorry, they have to do it. An American audience We do not respond well to that shit. We don't do it, honestly. And, you know, obviously they have sales all over the world, but we don't respond well to that shit. And I think the biggest insult that they've done to me personally, and I take it personal, I think the biggest insult that they've done to me personally recently was the Switch OLED, which is bullshit. The Switch OLED is bullshit. And if no one has said it live on a YouTube stream or a Twitch stream or on a video before, I will say it now. The Switch OLED was a bullshit-ass release, and they shouldn't have done it, and they knew what the people wanted. They knew we wanted 4K, or at least 1440p. They knew we wanted that, and they just said, oh, hey, here's a fraction of a larger screen, OLED, cool, that's it.
How much of that was them not wanting to respond to what people wanted, and how much of that was the supply issues that we're still feeling from the pandemic? That's, I think, part of it, right? Because we had a bunch of people. Jason Schreier, one of the most irrefutable top sources in the video game industry, came out and said it was going to be the Nintendo Switch Pro. It's in the works. But he also started saying that the supply demands just like it was a little bit too much. So I will just say this. I think the Super Nintendo Switch, I'm manifesting that name. That's a cool-ass name. Nintendo, don't fuck this up. The Super Nintendo Switch, it's going to sell like hotcakes no matter what. Will it give us everything that we want? That's a whole nother conversation. I am very optimistic. Just for the sake of me being an optimist, I'm going to go ahead and say that they are going to be making more of a hardcore type of console. I'm not saying that it's going to be only for the hardcore audience, but they have their foundation with the Nintendo Switch. If we look back with the Nintendo Wii, that was very gimmicky. The Switch kind of is, but it's also a really good portable console. It's also a really good home console. All it needs is just the beefier specs and more triple third-party games. That's all it really needs, at least in my opinion. I don't know. What are some things that you would like to see from a Switch, from a Super Nintendo Switch? I'm manifesting that name. You already mentioned the Quad HD, the high refresh rate, but is there anything else that would, like, I guess, move the needle for you?
I guess my thing with like a Nintendo console, and honestly, I want to backtrack a little bit to something that you said. You feel like it was a supply chain issue. I think it was stubbornness. If we're being honest, I think I'm not gonna let this go. I don't think I'll ever let this go as a gamer. I truly do feel like the Switch OLED was an insult to gamers. If I talk about sales and I talk about money all the time on this channel, but like for me, that's an insult to like my wallet. Like that's money. I think the Switch OLED was money grubby. I think the Switch OLED was very, very money grubby of Nintendo. I'd love to see the sales numbers on it, and I'm not sure. They haven't cycled it out as the only SKU on the market, to my understanding. I think you can still just buy a regular Switch as well. But even just like for $50 more, just like if it were $100 more, $200 more, honestly, I might not even be that mad. But it feels like they're just trying. They just tried to nickel and dime us for that unit, and people bought it. People fucking bought it, yes. Man. Like,
yeah. What?
It pisses me off to no end. I'm sorry, but to answer your question, from a console, from a Switch 2, outside of what I've mentioned, I really don't think there's anything more that I require from a Switch console, especially if it's a souped up version of what we have now that will put them in the ballpark of, you know, what Microsoft and Sony have offered. I think that's okay. I think that's okay. You know, high fidelity games, that's absolutely great. My thing for Nintendo is before we even talk about hardware, I need a little bit of a culture switch. Because if you look back on their history, and I think their history is tied to their hardware releases, if you look back on their history, they're insulting, in my opinion, to their fan base. And on so many levels. And a fan base that has loved them and continues to love them through and through, regardless of what they do, what they don't get, and what they do get. The Nintendo fan base has been so loyal to that company. And they continue to like spit in their face with so many other little things that, honestly, for me, another console just is not that exciting for me unless they're going to make it on par with PS5 and the Series X.
So I just want to go on the record and say that I agree with you. The OLED Switch was, with all the rumors of the Nintendo Switch Pro coming out, releasing that, and the only big feature is, hey, it has an OLED screen. Yeah, OLED screens are fucking awesome. Don't get me wrong, I love OLED screens. I have an OLED in my bedroom. I'm not trying to flex or anything like that, but
Big flex.
I truly think that the OLED Switch should have just been a updated SKU of the original Switch. It shouldn't have been called the OLED edition. It should have just been the Nintendo Switch. Every Nintendo Switch you buy from here on out, it has an OLED screen. That's the way it should have been. That was very disrespectful. But to the point that you were just making, there's not going to be a culture switch. And the reason why is because they're still printing money. Like, I knew that the Nintendo Switch was popular, but we just talked about it. It surpassed the PS freaking 4 in terms of lifetime sales in the U.S. Pokemon is still the biggest entertainment medium or property in the world. Like, that's not gonna. Their culture is not gonna switch. Well, pun intended, I guess. But
I see what you did there.
The culture is not gonna change until they start losing money, which they did with the Wii U, and that's what got us the Nintendo Switch. And a lot of people seem to be enjoying the Switch. So I think whatever culture we would have seen change from Nintendo, it happened after the Wii U, and I don't think we're gonna get more than
that. I agree. I agree. I don't know really how much more there's for me to say about it because Nintendo just has been like a gigantic failure in a lot of senses, in a lot of meanings for me. And I don't mean to make it sound like I don't have a Switch or anything. I have a Switch. I just bought a game for a Switch. I like the Switch. I like the Switch a lot. It has its problems, as we have said, but I just. It's cultural issues for me with Nintendo that I personally can't get past. Just from the way they support their games, like Smash Brothers, the amount of money that they could put in their pockets from Smash Brothers, the amount of money that they do put in their pockets from Pokemon, and couldn't still put money in their pockets from Pokemon. I don't understand the decisions over there. Maybe it's Japanese business that I don't understand. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know. Maybe I'm not supposed to understand it. Or who knows? Maybe I'm making a big deal out of something that doesn't really matter because Nintendo, like you said, prints money. So
I don't know, though. I don't think it is a Japanese thing because I think very early on, after the PS2 era, Sony was kind of acting like the way that we know Nintendo to be acting in the past decade or so. And we saw a cocky Sony. We saw a very headstrong Sony, very stubborn Sony, very much like what you just described Nintendo as being. Then we got the PS4, and ever since, Sony has been a dramatically different company. So, yeah, I don't think that plays a role into it. It may, who knows, but I don't know. I think it's just some sort of it's coming from the top down, it's coming from those executives. And,
yeah.
Okay, so I'm just going to pose a question to you.
Okay.
If Nintendo keeps being the Nintendo that we know right now, and they announce the Super Nintendo Switch, and it does have at least 75% of the features that you were looking for, are you getting the Super Nintendo Switch?
I'm never a first adopter, so I won't get it at launch, but I think as with most things, a big part of that is also the launch offerings. So it would be hard if they offered me those things. It would highly depend on as well as the launch offerings. So it's hard to say. I'm going to teeter towards no because I don't think Nintendo's ever had a launch group of games that I've really ever been super excited about. Correct me if I'm wrong. Breath of the Wild launched with the Switch, right?
Yes, but it also did launch on the Wii U.
Right. So Breath of the Wild was probably the biggest thing that they launched with, and if I didn't buy a Switch initially when it first came out, I think I waited maybe 4 or 5 months, but I did eventually end up getting one. So I mean, I think I will I think I would get a Switch 2. I think also a little bit of the nature of what we do requires me to have it, or at least access to one. But I'm not moved to do it. They would have to really blow my mind with some things that they want to do over there at Nintendo before I, run out to go get a Switch 2 right now.
I agree with that. I think when it comes to it, I think there's been enough time after Super Mario Odyssey that we might be getting a sequel. So if the launch offerings are something like Breath of the Wild 2, Super Mario Odyssey 2, and a new Mario Kart, for example, you got me. I'm in. I mean, what can I say? I'm in.
So I do want to pose a question because I am curious when we're talking about specifically sales. Something about you saying to me and reading that headline as the big Sony fanboy that I am, that the Nintendo Switch has outsold the PS4, and Nintendo just continuously creeps closer and closer with every console release they have to outselling the PS2, which I just cannot have. I'm curious to the numbers exactly, because Nintendo, as always, finds cute little ways to boost their sales. And in the instance of Nintendo Sports, Wii Sports, I think, is the highest selling game of all time, just by virtue of it being automatically included with the Nintendo Wii. So I am looking at these numbers here, and they do also include the Switch Lite sales. I am very curious to see just how many of the 107.65 million units of the Switch that have been sold. I am very curious to know what the breakdown on that is, because if you remove the Switch Lite from that, I would not at all be surprised if the Switch falls way back down under maybe the Xbox 360's 84 million.
I don't know, man, dude. Like, the Nintendo Switch is super popular. It has been since the moment it came out.
I agree.
I'm an owner of the Switch Lite, and personally, I think the Nintendo Switch Lite is freaking amazing. It feels like a modern Game Boy in my hands. It's so comfortable. I never really played Nintendo games on the TV, anyways. If I do, Mia has her own Switch and we can play that. But that also begs the question, right? Nintendo Switch, the reason why it's so popular, aside from the Lite and the base model and that type of stuff, it has an offering for everybody. And the Nintendo Switch is definitely definitely the console that you would go to a house and you might find multiple of the Nintendo Switches in the same household. You can't really say that, at least not as easily about the other consoles.
Agreed. I just, I feel like it's an unfair title. And that's just me wanting to make sure that my precious PS2 gets to hold its home as number one, baby.
Oh, wait. The PS4, wait, so first of all, the PS2 also includes the PS2 Slim models. The PS4 also includes the PS4 Slim models. The PS3 also includes the Slim, the Super Slim models. It's just going to be the nature for all of them, right? So if you take away the Switch Lite, you also have to take away the PS2 Slim, which completely annihilates the PS2 in my opinion, from the top charts. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Like, you can't just do that for Nintendo.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I wouldn't just do it for Nintendo. Just to be fair, I wouldn't just do it for Nintendo. Absolutely. I am just curious of it, though. Like, I'm not trying to knock them. I'm not trying to knock them with the Lite. I'm just saying. And don't get me wrong. I think the base model Switch definitely sold more than the Lite, honestly. But it's a curiosity for me because Nintendo is very transparent with these numbers. Let's get that out of the way. Honestly, I actually hadn't looked at it until now because I've never actually felt compelled to do so. All of these companies are actually extremely transparent with these numbers. I can tell you lifetime sales on everything kind of right now up until a certain point. But actually, as of March 31st... So I guess 2 days ago, well, not 2 days, 2 months ago, I'm just looking at the numbers. They haven't updated, Nintendo hasn't updated their site, but as of right now, they've sold according to them, as of March 31st, 107 million units, whereas the PS2 sits at more than 155 million units. So if you mean to tell me that since March, what are we, April, May, 2 months, in 2 months they've sold another, what's that, 45 million units? Is that accurate?
I don't know, man. I'm going by. Okay, so this is not international, by the way. This is straight up just U.S.
Oh, okay.
By the NPD numbers that just came out.
Okay, I got you. With that said, I don't know if Japan, if Nintendo is showing me international numbers or not. But I got you. There was a misunderstanding. Yeah. And also, I see something interesting in the chat. The Switch Lite has sold 13.53 million. So if that number, again, we're not being special towards Nintendo and Sony, but if that number were true, that doesn't, if you were to take that away, yeah, they're still under. If you were to take it away. Again, we're not doing that, but if you were to take it away.
But that's also by December 2020, so you would have to assume that number has like tripled by now.
That's true. That's fair. I'll give you that, damn it, I'll give you that. But they will not uncrown my king, my PlayStation 2, still in my opinion, arguably the best console of all time. Just saying.
Oh, absolutely, man. And not just the best console. When it first came out, it was the most affordable DVD player as well.
It was so cheap.
I would argue that's a big part of the PS2's success.
100%. It was a DVD player. Yeah. Like, 100%.
I don't know, man. Like, I don't think anything's ever going to touch the PS2. I might be wrong. Microsoft might just buy Nintendo and Sony and come out with the Super Xbox Station 1.5 360 or whatever. Who knows? But it honestly does feel like the PS2 is kind of untouchable. It came out in an era where it just made sense for it to catch on like wildfire. If we're talking about the amount of games, it felt like crazy good games, even licensed games, were coming out by the week. I kind of want to get back to that in terms of just video game releases.
Bro, it was the perfect console. It gave you everything. That's before that whole, like, it's way before that whole, like, bullshit exclusivity, like, before it was really, really the way it was, you know? Third-party games were in abundance. Now, if somebody wants to source the numbers there, I would like to see just how many games came out in that generation, as opposed to like the most recent of generations. I feel like third-party games just went away. Like, and I think that's the nature of the business, you know, they run out of money, you know, and stuff like that. But I mean, like, I just remember there was always a game to get back then. There was always something.
Man, even like going back to the licensed games, man.
Oh.
Nowadays, we think about licensed games and we're like, oh, that's for kids. I mean, I was a kid back at the PS2 time, don't get me wrong. But those games hit, man. I'm specifically remembering a bunch of Star Wars games, Batman games. It was crazy, dude. It was so good. So good.
Yo, like, there was a game for everything, man. I don't care. I love the old, like, video game tie-in games or the TV show tie-in games. Bring them back, baby. Why did we... an Avengers Endgame game, a Multiverse of Madness game, a Zack Snyder's Justice League game.
Please. It's not going to happen, but please.
Never going to happen. Bro, and I pose this to anybody, actually. Go to Wikipedia, search PlayStation 2, go to Game Library, and click List of PlayStation 2 games. The first list is literally just A through K. And yes, it is international as well. There are currently, and I'm reading this right from the Wikipedia page, game list A through K, PlayStation 2, there are currently 4,380 games across both the A through K pages and the remainder of the L through Z. 4,000 games! 4,000 games, dude! Like, that's absolutely insane! And just in contrast, the PlayStation 3, 2,561 games. And where's the PS4?
I see a comment. The Shrek games were great. Those fucking Shrek games, God, so good, man, so fucking good.
The
Pisses me off,
PS4.
man.
No, I want a list of. Yes, there we go. The PS4 had. Wow. Oh shit. Like, okay, that's actually kind of surprising. I'm not gonna lie. Huh.
What is it?
The PS4 had 3,300 games. That's not
That's
surprising. Like, yeah, it is a lot,
That's
but
a lot.
I do remember there being like a shit ton of PS4 games. Now I'm thinking about it.
There were a lot of PS4 games. It just didn't feel like the quality was as consistently good as that PS2 generation.
No. And I know we're short in its life, but just for final touch of contrast, the PS5 has currently 480 international games, and that's also including unreleased games. So, boy, oh boy, like
I'd like to have a later conversation on a later episode, maybe even for our anniversary episode next week, episode 10, about just how long is this current generation of this new generation of consoles gonna last? I feel like it's very weird because the last 2 years have been kind of robbed by the pandemic. So this is uncharted waters. But yeah, a little tease for a future topic potentially.
we can work it in. Absolutely, it can be one of the main topics. I'd actually love to, since we're doing, we're doing 3 main topics now. If that were to be topic number 4, I would love. Let's do this. Let's give a little sneak peek into next week, if you'll indulge me. So, unless something big pops up, of course. Unless something big pops up that requires us to talk about it. Main topic number 1. Your top 5 favorite games of all time. Main topic number 2. My top 5 favorite games of all time.
Okay, and then maybe the third topic can be our favorite consoles of all time.
Oh yeah, we can do this. But we can absolutely do this. I think that'll be great. You're 24 now, right?
Yeah, it's my Kobe Bryant year, man.
Okay, so yeah, I've you know what's funny? I think that I think a lot of people would laugh at this, but that 6-year difference in like time that I would have spent gaming that you were turning 6, like, is surprisingly interesting. It's surprisingly interesting if you look at the approach. So I'm very interested to have that conversation. Yeah, it's a whole generation. It's literally a whole separate console generation that you likely may not have been exposed to at all.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, man. I feel like that has to be cemented as one of our topics next week.
Let's do it.
But we'll narrow down the details.
I'm putting it on the docket. Damn it! I'm filling out the Asana right now. That's what's happening. God damn it.
Yeah, I feel like I can only speak for myself, but I think chat would also really enjoy having a Geeks and Goblins episode that delves more into our preferences, our thoughts, our opinions, more so than just news. Although the news is still as important because a bunch of shit is happening in the gaming industry right now.
A whole bunch of shit. It's amazing that we live in this time of gaming where all these things are happening, and we get to see these worlds that are created from these minds of people that some are similar and some are just like things we would never even consider. And I think we're all blessed to live in this console generation, regardless of if Microsoft is bogarting all of the Call of Duties or if Sony is keeping Donald Duck close to the chest. Like, regardless of, what we're experiencing, I think we're in an amazing time to be, where we are. And I'm grateful for all of the worlds that I get to stumble into. And I think that is our time, my friend. I think that is inching closer to the end of this episode of Geeks and Goblins. Utopian Revolt, it's always a pleasure, my friend. It is always a good time sitting here talking with you about these wonderful things.
Yeah, man, I'm always happy to be on here. The Geeks and Goblins, ever since we started it, it's kind of like changed my life a little bit. I'm loving it, man. And now, today, we have begun a new motherfucking era.
There we go.
With the Goblin Gang Entertainment, man. There's some big things in store, guys. There's some really big things. If you think this has been a lot, you have no idea what's coming.
No idea.
Man to the left, right. I can't. The man to the
I'm on
man
the left.
next to me.
Left. Let's
The
the left.
man next to me. The man to the left of me is a freaking genius. We are gonna go places together. This is gonna be a community that is ever growing. Hell yeah, man! Let's get it.
I'm super excited. I'm super excited. Thank you to everybody in the chat for being here with us. Utopian Revolt, where can they find you, sir?
I don't think you have to look much further than this channel. I'm going to be doing a lot of streaming, a lot of content creation on this YouTube channel, Goblin Gang Entertainment. This is going to be basically where we funnel all the content. If you're tired of just seeing my face, hearing my voice, and you just want to read my thoughts instead, you can find me on Twitter at Utopian Revolt.
Fantastic. And for the time being, at least for the rest of the month, so that way my little previous subscribers don't feel like they're getting gypped, you will find me streaming on Twitch throughout the remainder of the month. I'm not going to tell you when, because even I don't know, but if you want to come and check out what I got going on, you can find me at OG Goblin Gaming on Twitch, as well as OG Goblin Games on Twitter. And after this month, I will be here exclusively with your homie Utopian Revolt. We'll be streaming, we'll be doing some amazing things, some co-streams. Got to figure that out since we're streaming on the same channel now. Just now thought about that. That's weird. But we will figure it all out. It's going to be fantastic. We've got some amazing content coming. I've got an announcement that even Utopian Revolt doesn't even know about. I can't talk about it because I can't talk about it. You know, I like to keep things close to my chest because it has to come to fruition. But as soon as it comes to fruition, everyone will see, and it's going to be great. It's going to be fun. It's going to be different. It's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to show it to you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in to another fantastic episode of Geeks and Goblins. We will be back next Saturday with another episode. And Utopian Revolt, I believe you are streaming again when?
I'm streaming Wednesday. We're going to be continuing our Knights of the Old Republic Wednesday series, episode 2. Coming next Wednesday.
There we go, and I might be back on Monday. I don't know. We're going to try this YouTube streaming thing out. Let's see what's happening. In the meantime, sir, thank you for joining me on another fantastic episode. Ladies and gentlemen, you have a fantastic night, and we will see you on the next one. Good night.